Okay, is dropshipping dead?
According to Dropship Lifestyle, dropshipping is not dead because traffic costs are up. People are going to say,
So what you're hearing right there is the results of a Google voice search. And through Android phones like this and Google Home devices, more and more people are utilizing this feature. And what I want to talk to you about today is why right now is the time to start optimizing your e-commerce site for Google voice search. So first of all, why should you even want to optimize for Google voice search? You just don't want to miss out on the traffic. I'm going to link to a study below that shows 41% of adults use voice search at least once per day, and that more than half of smartphone users will engage with voice technology on their device. People are using it, the traffic is there. Another thing that's really important as people start to shift to using voice search rather than traditional search is that you don't have the option to be number 2 or 3 and still have people find you. Like you just saw, when I made that search on my phone, it gave me one result, and that's all I heard. Now, again, people don't have the option to see the top 3 results. They hear what Google wants them to hear. So it's important you do the work now so that you become number 1, because even number 2 is not good enough. And finally, voice search is already here, and it's only to continue to become more and more relevant. And what you don't want to do is be forced a year from now trying to play catch up. Instead, what you want to do now is get ahead of the curve, do the work, and be solidified as that result by the time this thing explodes and everybody is using it. So now let me give you some practical tips and show you how to optimize your e-commerce site for Google voice search. Now, the first tip, and probably the most important, is to do your keyword research. What you need to do is think about what your customers are asking, because this isn't like a traditional type of e-commerce store where you just want to rank for everything and anything. Instead, you need to think about the intent that the person making the search would have. So some examples would be thinking about what questions they're asking. For an e-commerce store, it might be something like, where can I find the best discounts for stand-up paddleboards? Or maybe something like, what is the best stroller for a newborn? You want to think about what your customers are potentially asking, and you want to create content that answers those questions. My advice is to just create a Google Doc. We use Google Spreadsheets, and make a list of all of these questions that you could think of, and then write in all of the answers that you have for those questions. My second tip for how to optimize for Google voice search is to record yourself making videos where you're answering the same questions. Now, the reason we record these videos is so that we can upload them to YouTube and also embed them on our websites. You see, when Google is trying to figure out what answer to show in those voice search results, not only will it have your website as an option, but sometimes the results come from YouTube itself. So by answering these questions in a video format and uploading them to your website as well as YouTube, you actually have 2 different opportunities to appear in those results. So the more exposure, the better. Again, record yourself answering those questions and upload those videos to YouTube. Now, the third tip I have for you is to build out content pages on your e-commerce site. So for all of these questions that you already brainstormed and that you're going to be making videos for, make a new content page on your store for each of them. If you're using Shopify, these can go under the blog category, and your blog could basically be a list of questions and answers. Now, as for what to put on those new pages on your website, the title should be the question and the body of it should be the answer. But what you want to do in the first paragraph, the beginning of these new content pages, is have a short and concise answer to the question, because the answers that you'll typically get in a Google voice search are those short and compact. Think of them as summaries of the answer to the question. Now, you don't want to have these short, basically empty pages on your website. So while you want to lead with that summarized answer, you then want to have a more built out content page that goes deeper into the answer and explains more more to help the person doing the search. Now, also those videos that I talked about before that you'll be putting on YouTube, on these pages, you'll want to embed them as well. This helps not only those videos to rank higher in YouTube, but it will also help Google to know that these videos exist, and again, to give you this extra chance of being ranked in the Google Voice search result. Now, the fourth tip is pretty basic. It's like a fundamental of websites at this point, but still worth mentioning, and that is to make sure your site is secure. Make sure you have an active SSL certificate on it. Again, if you're using Shopify, this is very easy. It's like a toggle switch to turn it on. But if your site is secure, HTTPS, Google is going to prioritize you. And this has been true for years, but if for some reason you're not running on a secure site yet, make sure you get an active SSL certificate and make sure all of your pages are being shown as HTTPS, because that will just increase your chances of ranking in voice search, but also in regular searches as well on google.com. Now, my fifth tip for you is something that, again, will just benefit your site as a whole, but will also help you with Google Voice Search, and that is to optimize your pages so that they load fast. Google definitely gives preference to sites that load quickly. So some tips I can give you here is if you're using Shopify, make sure you're using what is known as a lightweight theme, something that doesn't have a bunch of bulky code that slows it down. Also, make sure if you're using different apps, you're using as few as possible. You don't need a whole bunch of them on your site to slow it down and to potentially hurt your chances of being ranked. Also, if you're ever uninstalling any apps, make sure all of that code is removed from your site as well, so it's not just lingering around and again bloating your code and slowing down your website. Something else you can and should do is make sure all of your media and your images on your website are compressed and are optimized for the internet. So for example, if you're uploading product photos to a product page, don't upload a 10 megabyte file of an image that is print quality. Instead, it should be compressed. It should be the smallest possible file size that still looks good on a computer so that the customer can see what they need to see, but so that your website isn't slowed down while trying to load some massive image. Another tip I'd give you is to use what's known as Google AMP pages, AMP. I will link to documentation for this below. There's a Shopify app you can use for this, but basically what that does is allow Google to cache different pages from your website so that they literally load instantly when people are clicking those links and going to your website. I recommend doing this for all of these new content pages that I'm talking about because they will load a lot faster, and again, Google will prioritize you over the competitors that are not using this. The sixth tip that is extremely important is to use what is known as structured data. We use an app for Shopify for this called JSON-LD. Again, I'll post relevant links below this video. But what this basically does, without getting too technical, is change the code of your website so that it's more readable by Google and so that it can pull different information more easily out of your website. So put this on your website. It'll help Google basically read it easier. It'll be more Google friendly. But what you want to do, especially on these new content pages, is use what is known as the Q&A rich snippet. Obviously, it stands for question and answer. And what this does is show Google that there's an actual question and show Google that there's an answer. So this will increase your chances of getting ranked in Google Voice Search, but you'll also get an extra little side bonus here of having your questions and answers actually appear in the Google search results as well, giving you yet again a double win and even more chance for exposure. Now, next thing you want to do, this is tip number 7, is make sure your site is optimized for mobile, because again, Google prioritizes sites that are optimized for mobile. I'm going to post a link below this video straight from Google. If you go there, you copy and paste your URL, it'll tell you if it's mobile friendly or not. If it's not, make the changes Google recommends. Once you do, you will have a better chance of appearing in Google Voice search text results. And finally, let's move on to tip number 8, which is simply create better content. Listen, in tip number 1, when I was talking about doing keyword research, what I want you to do is get on your Android phone or get on a Google Home device and ask the questions that you want to answer and see what's currently appearing there, if anything at all. And what you want to do is look at what's currently appearing and think about what's good about it, but more importantly, how you can make it better. Because if people are already there and they have good content, you can't just kind of wing this, throw some stuff together in a few minutes and watch yourself magically magically rank for everything. Instead, you want to look at what is already working. You want to figure out what can be better about it. And you want to be the person or the company that does a better job so that your site ranks for Google voice search. And finally, I've alluded to this throughout this video, but all of these tips that I just gave you, as you do them, not only will they help you rank in Google voice search, but they're also going to increase your rankings in Google organically. So you really have a lot of incentive to do this. It is well worth it. So if you're looking to learn more about how we build highly profitable semi-automated stores that are future-proof with things like Google voice search, I would highly recommend you go over to dropshipwebinar.com, DROPSHIP webinar.com, to get my free training that shows you how it's done. So as always, guys, if you got value from this video, please do give it a like and leave a comment below. And with that being said, I will talk to you in the next episode. Hey, what's up, guys? Anton here again, and I hope you got some real value out of that video you just watched. If you did, you should definitely check out this one or this video right here. I do 2 new ones every week. You'll see a subscribe button right here. And if you want my free training that is 2.5 hours long of value with 237 niches, click this button right down here. It'll take you to where you need to go.